Well, I think people are going to be surprised by this review. Hey, it's StarkRavingGeek, episode 11, and I'm doing my review of Spider-Man Homecoming, which dropped this weekend. It was a good movie. It wasn't great. I think I need to watch this a few more times to give it another shot. I have to tell you spoilers, so get ready, because here they come. Alright, so let's start with the big one, Tom Holland. There hasn't been one person closer to playing the actual Peter Parker, in my opinion, than Tom Holland. I didn't read a lot of Spider-Man comics growing up. Watching him on the big screen, that was as close to the Peter Parker from the comics, and he's a great Spider-Man. He's the Spider-Man that I read in those comics with the one-liners in between the battles, and what I loved about this movie is it's not a reboot. We know the Spider-Man story. He was bit by a spider. It's mentioned in one line in the movie, and it's done with. This is more about a movie about Spider-Man learning to be a superhero and trying to kind of prove himself to Tony Stark to get into the Avengers.
So, that was nice.
All right, so from the hero, let's go to the villain. By far, Michael Keaton is an amazing actor. The dude was Batman. I will say that I don't think, as good as he is, the Vulture, they didn't do justice to the character. I don't think Michael Keaton was given enough backstory here. So the movie starts off with Michael Keaton leading a crew of guys cleaning up after the War of Manhattan from the original Avengers movie. Then he gets booted out as Stark takes over with his damage control project. All of a sudden, they flash to 8 years later, and he's a bad guy. They made him turn off screen. The one thing I love about Marvel movies is they tell you how the villain becomes a villain. You saw how Venom became Venom. You saw how Sandman became Sandman. Even Doc Ock and Spider-Man 2, you saw that transition from Otto Octavius to Doc Ock. And for the most part, Marvel makes you feel a little bit of sympathy for their villains because you kind of relate to and see how they became villains. That wasn't done in this movie. I have no complaints about how Michael Keaton played the Vulture. I love the action sequences, thought they were really good. A couple of them, I thought, I've seen this before, but that's what you get in pretty much any superhero movie these days. Another positive for the movie is that they answered questions that I've always had growing up as a kid. You ever watch the Spider-Man cartoons? He's always hitting his web. You don't see where, but he's always hitting his web. But what happens when he's in an area where there's no place to hit that web? They actually address that in the movie, and it's one of the funnier scenes. Also, I really like that they made a big emphasis on him being a student. We all know how smart Peter Parker is, but I think in some of the movies before, that wasn't really shown. All right, so let's get to the supporting cast. Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. Next, he's just awesome. Marissa Tomei as Aunt May. I love the fact that they went with a younger Aunt May. One I had a crush on in the early 90s. Okay, late 90s, early 2000s. Fine, last week. There's Peter's best friend, Ned. Annoyed the crap out of me for the first little while in the movie. Then he found out that Spider-Man is Spider-Man, and then started to kind of grow on me a little bit, especially when he's asking him all these questions about him being Spider-Man. Also, Donald Glover was in the movie, and he plays the Prowler. He mentions a nephew, and if you follow the comics, that nephew is Miles Morales, the new Spider-Man. And one of my favorite cameos in the movie, Captain America, who's in the movie 2 or 3 times, and every time he's on the screen, you just die of laughter. It's hilarious. All right, so let's get to one of the bigger storylines, which is Zendaya. Now, in the movie, she plays a girl named Michelle. The whole movie, I thought this girl is MJ. Near the end of the movie, she reveals that her name is MJ. So I'm like, oh man, this is it. It's Mary Jane. But according to Marvel president, he says this is not MJ Watson. They just have the same initials. So if that's true, then I have to take back one of my criticisms of the movie because that's not Mary Jane Watson, and I didn't think they got that character correct. So here's my review. The reason I'm giving this movie, Spider-Man Homecoming, a 3.9 out of 5 is because when I left Wonder Woman, I left Iron Man, I left Guardians of the Galaxy, I knew I had just seen an awesome movie. I didn't get that feeling walking out. No doubt Tom Holland is the best Peter Parker Spider-Man so far on the big screen. This was a much more realistic Spider-Man movie that I've seen compared to the others. Now remember, this is just my opinion, and I know you've got an opinion, and you're probably gonna tell me I'm wrong, so you can leave those comments in the thread. Also, subscribe to the channel, follow me on social media at Tony Stark Radio, and I don't know how to end it. Dude, I told you, I don't know how to end it.